Today I wanted to take a little look at Injustice 3, a game which we don't actually have a release date yet for, but we do have a bit of a confirmation in the form of leaks. We know that this game exists, or at least it's been heavily pushed that it does exist, and it's really just common sense. So I wanted to take a look today at changes that this series needs going forward, because Mortal Kombat 11 introduced a lot of things from NetherRealm Studios, some of which are good, some of which are bad, and let's take a look at what belongs in the next Injustice game. This is not a top 5 or anything like that, it's just a few things that would improve the game. The first thing is definitely a better watchtower system, because I was looking at the crypt and the menu system from Mortal Kombat 11. It is insane how alive it is compared to Injustice 2. In Injustice 2, there are definitely really cool ideas at play. I mean, once you load up the game and you're on the main menu, you actually have Batman standing there in the watchtower on the computer, and he's just messing around, and once you click something, it zooms in past him, and it goes to whatever that thing is, whether that's the gear system, playing single player, the multiverse, which is just classic arcade towers from any of the other fighting games, including Mortal Kombat. So this is something that could be widely expanded on. It's mostly really just dead. It's just a glorified pause menu that doesn't really have any life to it, which is weird because if you know anything about the Watchtower from the comics or even from the Justice League cartoon, there is a lot of life in this space station. I mean, there's a lot going on there. There's a lot of people there. Members of the League would be here, or whatever's left of it in this continuity, obviously. So you'd have different superheroes here congregating. You would have different rooms, like a trophy room where the Justice League would keep their trophies from past exploits, whether that's things like a Kryptonian laser rifle, all the way down to maybe the puppet Scarface. You know, this is going to have a lot of stuff in it. It's basically a bigger version of Batman's Batcave trophy room / system that he has going on, where he's got, like, you know, the giant penny and the T-Rex and all this stuff there that he keeps. This is something that the Justice League has historically had as well. It's weird that you don't see any of this in Injustice 2. You do see a lot of stuff like that in Mortal Kombat 11, though. The crypt is very lively. It's an entire world almost, or map, that you can go through. You open chests to get cosmetics and items for the towers that you can use then to even the odds against AI opponents. And you are able to just kind of traverse through here, getting different keys, finding different lore elements, and even using elements that actually tie into the Mortal Kombat universe, like Shao Kahn's hammer to break into and down, like, you know, walls, weak walls, stuff like that. Maybe you get dragon emblems to open up a certain door. You do little puzzles. This is an idea that would really lend itself to the Injustice Watchtower. And I'm not sure why it's not there in Injustice 2. I think it's just a system that needed to be built upon. But nevertheless, it's definitely something that could use overhauling. Because that life that is brought to Mortal Kombat 11 by the crypt is something that Injustice 2, or, well, the Injustice series in general, desperately could have needed in the past and would only benefit from in the future. It would also give the developers a lot more chance to play around with the lore, whether that's, you know, maybe you got things like, oh hey, I just came across Batman's heated batarang, and this is now a cosmetic item I can use in the game. Or, hey, look at that over there. We're going to, instead of opening up this door and finding a shrine and opening this chest and finding gold and, let's say, you know, Raiden's face mask of some kind, maybe instead we open this door of the Watchtower, we go into this secure area, and we find the heated batarang, or we find a Kryptonian laser rifle, something like that, that's able to play into that lore of DC. Definitely a way to make the game feel alive and really expand on that feeling. Another thing that this game needs is a better gear system. Now, Injustice 2 has a fun gear system, in my opinion, and listen, I know that if you're a member of the fighting game community, you might be a little bit reeing right now, because a lot of FGC members do not like the gear system. They don't like the idea of there being different statistics to these gears that maybe buff or nerf certain things. I understand that. I am not a member of the FGC. I respect the talent, but it's just not for me. It's not me. So I'm looking at this purely as a video game that you are playing by yourself or playing online. I really do think that the gear system in Injustice 2 was good, and it was a start down the right direction that could use a lot of work. And it's not necessarily that much better or worse in Mortal Kombat 11. once we get to MK11, you start to have like this limited capacity problem. And what I mean by that is you will only have 3 slots that change for each character. You maybe have like a hat or a helmet or a mask. You will have a weapon, like a main weapon, and a secondary weapon, and that's about it. Other than that, it's just the cosmetic skin. And I think that that's something that definitely could be improved on in Mortal Kombat, because that's a really, really big simplification of a vast gear system from Injustice. But at the same time, Injustices could have been expanded further, and I really think it should be. I also do think that you need to get rid of the idea of these different gear pieces looking the exact same but having different names, which somehow makes them special. I mean, if I get the Pennyworth Protector, it should not look the exact same as another helmet. If I get a certain belt for Batman, it should not look the same as another belt with a different name. Same with maybe like, guns for Harley or a Superman crest for Superman. These should all be unique items, or they should be toned down. And I really know that NetherRealm is a studio that has a lot of understanding of their development of video games. They would definitely be able to actually expand on those gear systems and make more unique things. I think that a problem with it is just the time that goes into it, but it really is something that kept people playing Injustice and has actually kept a lot of people playing Mortal Kombat, at least somewhat, is this idea of unlocking these special cosmetic or gear-based items for your character that would make your character different than somebody else's. And then there is the whole AI mode as well, like being able to set up an AI fighter with gear that you chose and a fighting style that you choose that definitely makes the game feel more alive, which plays into that gear system. I just think that needs to be widely expanded on. And another thing I do want to add in here actually is that a mistake that Mortal Kombat made that this should not follow, which is not really even a change, but it is the always online nature of the loot boxes or of the skins, basically of this unlock system, which isn't really loot boxes in this game, but it kind of is. It's complicated. So to explain that briefly, in the crypt, you can rewind time and refill these boxes, and you can open them up again and get different skins and different stuff, yes. But there's also a ton of them that you just earn through playing normal towers. So because of that, it's a weird combined system, but it's always online, which I think is not a good idea. And I thought that they were maybe going to patch this at some point, but even now when you go to actually get gear after a match, it contacts the Mortal Kombat servers to actually do so. I just don't think that's a very good idea. And you can say, well, that's not a change from Injustice 2 because they already weren't that. But the thing is, they typically take the ideas from the previous Mortal Kombat and incorporate them into Injustice in some way. So that's not something I want to see. I think that's unhealthy for game preservation, because if you're playing Mortal Kombat as RoboCop, your experience in a few years, if you rely on the internet to unlock this gear, is going to be very different than your experience now, because let's say the servers are offline. How are you going to earn that? You're not. So that part of the game is just gone. That cosmetic piece is just dead. There's nothing there. And I think that's a real mistake that games have made, definitely as of late. The final thing I do want to bring up that I think Injustice 3 needs, that 1 and 2 really didn't have, is better guest characters. Now, hear me out. People love the fact that Hellboy and TMNT are in Injustice 2. I actually do as well. I don't know as much about Hellboy as a lot of people do. I'm not really a huge fan, but it's cool to see him there. That said, Mortal Kombat has been way more risky with their guest characters that they actually get in Mortal Kombat. I mean, if you're just looking at Mortal Kombat 9, you already had Freddy from the Freddy movies, Nightmare on Elm Street, which was a pretty weird, different thing to be throwing in there. Then in Mortal Kombat 10, you had characters such as Leatherface, the alien xenomorph from Alien. You had all these different people, Jason Voorhees. There was definitely risk to these characters that was interesting and really made you feel like you were playing elements of a horror game too. They were able to tap into that feeling. And then if you look at Mortal Kombat 11, you even have characters like Terminator and RoboCop. That's awesome. There's definitely a sci-fi feel to that one. They are able to tap into these different market feels and make you enjoy the game in those ways because they give you different guest characters. Injustice 2 still tries to push the guest character thing, so it seems like Injustice 3 would go that way. The problem is that all they really do is a couple Mortal Kombat characters and then TMNT and Hellboy. There's no risk here. You know, you're not seeing Spawn in Injustice like you do in Mortal Kombat. It's just not happening. And I think that's a real shame because there is a wide variety of comic book and cartoon characters that would fit in Injustice as guest characters, but will not. And before people say, well, I don't want guest characters, here's the thing. It's kind of a too bad, so sad mentality because they're going to put them in there. The fact that people buy the game to play as some of these characters gets them to keep putting these characters in there. So it's like, we're going to get guest characters. I would just really like to see more risk and more variety from the DC universe version of Mortal Kombat, which is Injustice, so that we can actually see characters that we wouldn't necessarily see. And while the Injustice versions of Mortal Kombat characters are cool, I really don't think each game needs more than one. Scorpion being in Injustice 1, that's fun. Sub-Zero being in 2, that's fun. We didn't need Raiden. We don't need 3 now in Injustice 3. Let's just tone back those characters when it comes to guests and do some fun, comic book and television and cartoon related things that would be awesome to see crossover with DC. So hey, let me know what you think in the comments down below. What changes would you like to see in Injustice 3 from the previous games? What would make you more likely to play it? And what do you think would make it a better game? I'm really interested to hear your thoughts. Be sure to check out the new Let's Play channel in the description below, Degenerate Plays, where we are playing a lot of fun games and just hanging out with you. And hey, we've got everything down there below as always. Instagram, Twitter, Patreon, Reddit. It's all down there, the Discord. I'll see you in the next one. Have a fantastic day, everybody, and stay awesome.